Welcome, viewers. In stark contrast to the previous productions of the Swarang Theatre, this is a serious one. The young artists have put their blood and bones into it. And taking into account the somber nature of this act, you're expected to remain silent. Please silence your cell phones. I'll give you a moment to do that. Yeah? Very good. Very good. Swarang presents to you Susan Glaspell's Trifles.
This feels good. Come up to the fire, ladies.
Oh, I'm not cold.
Now, Mr. Hale, before we move things about, you explain to Mr. Henderson just what you saw when you came here yesterday morning.
By the way, has anything been moved? Are things just as you left them yesterday?
It's just the same. When it dropped below zero last night, I thought I'd better send Frank out to make a fire for us. No use getting pneumonia with a big case on. But I told him not to touch anything except the stuff. And you know Frank.
Somebody should have been left here yesterday.
Yesterday, when I had to send Frank to Morris Center for the man who went crazy, I want you to know I had my hands full yesterday. I knew you could get back from Omaha by today. And as long as I went over everything here myself.
Mr. Hale, tell now just what happened when you got here yesterday morning.
Well, Harry and I started town with a load of potatoes. We came along the road from my place. And as I got here, I said, I'm going to see if I can't get John Wright to go in with me on a party telephone. I spoke to Wright about it once before, and he put me off, saying folks talk too much anyway. And all he asked was peace and quiet. I guess you know about how much he talked himself. Though I thought maybe if I went to the house and talked about it before his wife, though I said to Harry that I don't know as what his wife wanted made much difference to her.
Let's talk about that later, Mr. Hale. I do want to talk about that, but tell now just what happened when you got to the house.
Well, I didn't hear or see anything. I knocked at the door. Still, it was all quiet inside. I knew they must be up. It was past 8 o'clock. So I knocked again. And I thought I heard somebody say, "Come in." I wasn't sure. I'm not sure yet, but I opened the door. This door. And there, in that rocker, sat Mrs. Wright.
What was she doing?
Well, she was walking back and forth. She had her apron in her hand and was kind of pleating it.
And how did she look?
Well, she looked strange.
How do you mean, strange?
Well, as if she didn't know what she was going to do next. And kind of done up.
How did Mrs. Wright seem to feel about your coming?
Why? I don't think she minded, one way or other. She didn't pay much attention. I said, How do, Mrs. Wright? It's cold, isn't it? And she said, is it? And went on, kind of peeking at her apron. Well, I was surprised. She didn't ask me to come to the stove or to sit down, but just sat there, not even looking at me. So I said, I came to see John. And at that, she laughed. I guess you'd call it a laugh. Well, I thought of Harry and the team outside, so I said over shout, can't I see John? No, she says, kind of dull like. Well, ain't he home? Says I. Yes, says she, he's home. Then why can't I see him? I asked her out of patience. Because he's dead, she says. Dead? Says I. She just nodded her head, not getting a bit excited, but rocking back and forth. Well, I got up with the idea of going up there. And I asked, why? Where is he? She just pointed upstairs like that. Well, why? What did he die of? Says I, not knowing what to say. She just pointed upstairs. She said, somebody slipped a rope around his neck and strangled him. Well, I went out and called Harry. I thought I might need help. Then we went upstairs, but there he was lying.
I think I'd rather have you go into that upstairs where you can point it all out. Just go on now with the rest of the story.
Well, my first thought was to get the rope off. It looked... But Harry, he went up to him and he said, no, he's dead all right and we'd better not touch anything. So we went back downstairs. She was still sitting that same way. Has anyone been notified? I asked. No, she says, unconcerned. Who did this, Miss Wright? Says Harry. He said it businesslike, and she stopped reading of her apron. I don't know, she says. You don't know? Says Harry. No, says she. Weren't you in bed with him? Says Harry. Yes, says she. But I was on the inside. Somebody slipped a rope round his neck and strangled him. And you didn't wake up, says Harry. I didn't wake up, she said up. We must have looked as if we didn't see how that could be, for after a minute, she said, I sleep sound. Harry was going to ask some more questions, but I said maybe we ought to let her tell a story first to the coroner or the sheriff. So Harry went as fast as he could to River's place with his telephone.
And what did Mrs. Wright do when she knew you had gone for the coroner?
Oh, she moved from that chair to this one, over here, and just sat there, with her hands held together and looking down. I got a feeling that I ought to make some conversation, so I said, I came to see John. I came to see John wanted to put in a telephone. And at that, she started to laugh. Then she stopped, looked at me, scared. I don't know, maybe it wasn't scared. I wouldn't like to say pause. Soon, Harry got back, and then Dr. Lloyd, and then you, Miss Peters. So I guess that's all I know that you don't.
I guess we'll go upstairs first, and then out to the barn and around there. You're convinced that there was nothing important here, nothing that could point to any motive?
Nothing here but kitchen things.
Here's a nice mess.
Oh, her fruit. Prepare fresh. She worried about that when it turned so cold. She said the fire go on and the jars would break.
Well, can you beat the woman? Held for murder and worrying about her preserves?
I guess before we are through, she may have something more serious than her preserves to worry about.
Well, women are used to worry about crime.
And yet, for all their worries, what would we do without the ladies? Dirty towels? Not much of a housekeeper, would you say, ladies?
There's a great deal of work to be done on the farm.
To be sure. And yet, I know there are some Dixon County farmhouses which do not have such roller towels.
Those towels get dirty often. Men's hands aren't always as clean as the body.
Ah, loyal to your sex, I see. But you and Mrs. Wright were neighbors. I suppose you were friends too.
I don't see much of her at retail. I've been in this house. It's more than
And what was that? You didn't like her?
I like to all well enough. Farmers' wives have their hands full, Mr. Henderson. And then
Yes.
it never seemed like a very cheerful place.
No, it's not cheerful. I shouldn't say she had the homemaking instinct.
I don't know if Wright had either.
You mean that they didn't get on very well?
No, I don't think any. But I don't think a place being cheerful for John Wright.
I'd like to talk more of that a little later. I want to get the lay of things upstairs now.
I suppose anything Mrs. Peters does will be alright. She was to take in some clothes for her, you know, and a few little things. We had left in such a hurry yesterday.
Yes, but I would like to see what you take in, Mrs. Peters, and keep an eye out for anything that might be of use to us.
Yes, Mr. Henderson. I'd hate to have men coming into my kitchen, snooping around, criticizing.
Of course, it's no more than their duty.
It's all right. But I guess that deputy sheriff who came up to make the fire might have got a little of this oil. Wish I thought of this sooner. Seems mean to talk about her for not having things slicked up when she had to come home in such a hurry.
Oh, she had bread, sir.
She was going to put this in there. It's a shame about her fruit. I wonder if it's all gone. I think there's some here that's all right, Mrs. Peters. Yes, here. This is Jerry's too. I believe that's the only one. She'd feel awful bad after all her hard work in the hot weather. I remember the afternoon I put up my cherries last summer.
Well, I must get those things from the front room closet. You coming with me, Mrs. Hill? You could help me carry them. My, it's cold in there.
Wright was close. I think maybe that's why she kept so much to herself. She didn't even belong to the ladies' aid. I think she felt she couldn't do her part. And then you don't enjoy things when you feel shabby. She used to wear pretty clothes and be lively. When she was Minnie Foster, one of the town girls being in the choir. But that was 30 years ago. This all was to take it.
She said she wanted an apron. Funny thing to her, for there isn't much to get you dirty in jail. Goodness knows. But I suppose just to make her feel more natural. She said there wasn't a top drawer in this cupboard. Yes, here. And then her little shawl that always hung behind her door. This one. Yes, here it is.
Mrs. Peters,
Yes, Mrs. Hill?
do you think she did it?
Oh, I don't know.
No, I don't think she did. asking for an apron and a little shawl, or worrying about her fruits.
Mr. Peters says it looks bad for her. Mr. Henderson is awful sarcastic in his speech, and he made fun of her saying she didn't wake up.
Well, I guess John Wright didn't wake when they were slipping that rope under his neck.
No, it's strange. It must have been done awful crafty and still. They say it was such a funny way to kill a man, rigging it all up like that.
That's just what Mr. Hale said. There was a gun in the house. He says that's what he can't understand.
Mr. Henderson said coming out that what was needed for the case was a motive. Something to show anger or sudden feeling.
Well, I don't see any signs of anger around you. It's white to hear. Wonder how they're finding things upstairs. I hope she had it a little more read up there. You know, it seems kind of sneaky. Locking her up in town and then coming out here and trying to get her own house to turn against her.
But Mrs. Hale, the law is the law.
I suppose it is. Better loosen up your things, Mrs. Peters. You won't feel them when you go out.
She was piecing a quilt.
It's log cabin pattern. Pretty, isn't it? I wonder if she was going to quilt it or just not.
They wonder if she was going to quilt it or not it.
Well, thanks for I didn't do much up there, did it? Let's go to the barn and get that cleared up.
Taken up our time with little things while we're waiting for them to get their things. I don't see if there's anything to laugh about.
Of course, they have got awful important things on their minds.
Mrs. Peters, look at this one. Here, this is the one she was working on. And look at the sewing. All of it has been so nice and even. Look at this. It's all over the place. Why? It looks as if she didn't know what she was about.
Oh, what are you doing, Mrs. Hale?
Just pulling out a stitch or two does not sew very good. Bad sewing always makes me fidgety.
I don't think we ought to touch things.
I just finish up this end. She was so nervous about it.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if she was nervous. I sometimes do awful strange when I'm just tired. Well, I must get these things wrapped up. They may be through sooner than we think. I wonder where I can find a piece of paper and string.
In that cupboard, maybe.
Why? Bird cage. Did she have a bird, Mrs. Hale?
Why? I don't know if she did or not. I've not been here for so long. There was a man around last year selling canaries cheap. But I don't know if she got one. Maybe she did. She used to seem real pretty herself.
Seems funny to think of a bird. But she must have had one. Or why would she have a cage? I wonder what happened to it.
I suppose maybe the cat got it.
No, she didn't have a cat. She's got that feeling some people have about cats, being afraid of them. My cat got it home, and she was real upset and asked me to take it out.
My sister Bessie's like that. Strange, ain't it?
Why? Look at this door. It's broke. One hinge is pulled apart.
Why? It looks as if someone must have been rough with it.
Why, yes.
I hope if we're going to find any evidence, there'll be about it. I would like like this place.
But I'm awfully glad you came with me, Mrs. It would be lonesome for me sitting here alone.
It would, wouldn't it? But I tell you what I do wish, Mrs. Peters. I wish I'd come over here sometimes when she was here. I wish I had.
But of course you were awful, Mrs. Your house and your children.
I could have come. I stayed away because it were cheerful. And that's why I ought to have come. I never liked this place. Maybe because it's down in the hollow and you don't see the road. I don't know what it is, but it's a lonesome place. I wish I could come over to see it first sometimes. I can see now.
You mustn't reproach yourself, Mrs. Somehow we just don't see how it is with other folks until something comes up.
Not having children makes less work, but it makes a quiet house. Right up and got my way. No company when he did come in. Did you know John right, Mrs. Peters?
Not to know him. I've seen him in town. They say he was a good man.
Yes. Good. He didn't drink and kept his word as well as most, I guess. Paid his debts. But he was a hard man, Mrs. Peters. Just to pass the time of day with him. Raw wind that gets to the bone. I should have thought she would have wanted the bird. But what do you suppose went with it?
I don't know. Unless it got sick and died.
You weren't raised around here, were you? You didn't know?
Not till they brought her yesterday.
She, come to think of it, she was kind of like a bird herself. Real sweet and pretty. Kind of timid and fluttery. How she did change. Tell you what, Mrs. Peters, why don't you take this quilt in with you? It might take up her mind.
Why? I think that's a real nice idea, Mrs. There couldn't possibly be any objection to it, could there? Now, just what would I take? I wonder if the patches are in here and my friends.
Here's some bread. I expect this has got sewing things in it. What a pretty box. Looks as if something someone would gift you. Maybe her scissors are in here. Why? There's something wrapped up in this piece of silk.
Why? This isn't her scissors.
Oh, Mrs. Peters,
It's the bird!
But Mrs. Peters, look at it! Its neck! Look at its neck! It's all on the side too!
Somebody wrung its neck.
Well, ladies, have you decided whether she was going to quilt it or just knot it?
I think she was going to knot it.
That's interesting, I'm sure. Has the bird flown?
We think the cat got it.
Is there a cat?
Well, not now. They're superstitious, you know. They leave.
No sign at all of anyone having come from the outside, their own rope. Now let's go up again and go over it piece by piece. You would have to have with someone who should just...
She liked the bird. She was going to bury it in that pretty box.
When I was a girl, my kitten, there was a boy who took a hatchet. And before my eyes, and before I could get there, if they hadn't had me back, I would have hurt him.
I wonder how it would seem never to have had any children around. No, right, we like the sang? She used to sing. He killed that kid.
We don't know who killed the bird.
I knew John right.
It was an awful thing was done in this house that night, Mrs. Hale. Killing a man while he slept, slipping a rope around his neck that choked the life out of him.
His neck choked the life out of him.
We don't know who killed him. We don't know.
There had been years and years of nothing. Then a bird to sing to you. It would be awful still. After the bird was still.
I know what stillness is. When we homesteaded in Deborah, and my first baby died after he was 2 years old, and me with no other.
What do you suppose they'll be through? Looking for the evidence?
I know what stillness is. The law has got to punish crime, Mrs. Hale.
I wish you'd seen me in costume when she wore a white dress and blue ribbons and stood up there in the choir and sang. Oh, I wish I'd come over here once in a while. That was a crime. That was a crime. Who's going to punish that?
We mustn't take on.
I might have known she needed help. I know how things can be. For women, I tell you, it's strange, Mrs. Peters. We live close together, but we live far apart. We all go through the same things. It's just a different kind of same thing. If I was you, I wouldn't tell her fruits were gone. Tell her it ain't. Tell her it's alright. Take this and prove it to her. She may never know whether it was broken or not.
My, it's a good thing the man couldn't hear us. Couldn't they just laugh? Getting all stirred up over a little thing like a dead canary, as if they could have anything to do with it. Wouldn't they laugh?
No, Peters, it's perfectly clear. Accept a reason for doing it. But you know the juries when it comes to women. If there was some definite thing, something to show, something to make a story about, a thing that would connect up with this strange way of doing it.
Well, I've got the team around. Pretty cold out there.
I'm going to stay here a while by myself. You can send Frank out for me, can't you? I want to go over everything. I'm not satisfied that we can't do better.
You want to see what Mrs. Peters is taking in?
Oh, I guess these are not very dangerous things the ladies have picked out. No, Mrs. Peters doesn't need supervising. For that matter, a sheriff's wife is married to the law. What do you think about that, Mrs. Peters?
Not just that way.
Married to the law. I just want you to come in here a minute, Joel. You ought to take a look at these windows. We'll write out, Mr. Hale.
Well, Henry, at least we found out that she was not going to quit it. She was going to, what is it you call it, ladies?
We call it not it, Mr. Henderson.